What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to another video, and today we are doing a battle of the releases where we compare the Carter Wise Choice to the brand new Stan Onnex that was released here in 2022. Now, ever since I did my initial review video of the Stan Onnex and I posted a picture on my Instagram showing both of these releases, I've gotten a ton of questions on which one I feel is the overall better release. So I figured now would be a good time to shoot a video, talk about the features, talk about the level of adjustability, and then at the end I'll tell you which one of these releases I will be shooting here in 2022. Now, the first thing that I want to say is both of these releases are absolutely fantastic. You cannot go wrong with either one of these releases. Both of these are what I would consider a high-end handheld thumb button style release, but there are definitely a significant amount of differences between the two of those. So again, we're going to break those down in this video, and hopefully if you're deciding between these two releases, it helps you guys with your purchasing decision. Now, the first thing that I want to talk about is the level of adjustability that you get with both of these releases. Now, the first one that I'm going to start with is the Carter Wise Choice, because this one has the least amount of adjustability. You only have one screw that is going to change your trigger tension and your trigger travel. And the only adjustment that you have on the thumb barrel is the ability to rotate this on this designated thumb peg. You also do not have the option to change this from a 2-finger, 3-finger, or 4-finger. Now, you can buy these releases in a 3, 4. If you want to go with a 2-finger, you got to check out the knock to it. But like I said, this thing has the least amount of adjustability. Now, for me personally, I like how simplistic this release is. I like that it only has that one screw to adjust trigger travel and trigger tension. I feel like it is very easy to get this thing tuned in for you and how you like to shoot. But like I said, it does lack a lot of adjustability. Now, if you want, you can purchase an Adjusto trigger bar directly through Carter Enterprise, and that'll give you the ability to extend this thumb barrel out, and will give you a little bit more freedom on how you position that thumb barrel. But like I said, straight out of the box, the only thing that you can do is actually rotate this on this thumb peg. Now, if I compare that to the Stan Onnex, out of the box, this thing comes packed with a bunch of adjustability. So straight out of the box, you're going to be able to adjust the trigger tension. You'll be able to adjust the trigger travel. You can set this thing up in a 2-finger, a 3-finger, a 4-finger. There's a short thumb post, a long thumb post. There's a skinny thumb barrel, and then a fat thumb barrel. And then also keep in mind, depending on which thumb post you want to run, if you like the larger one, you can make that larger one a little bit shorter or a little bit longer. And same thing goes with that shorter thumb post, because they give you 2 screw locations that you can play around with to get this thumb barrel in the desired position that works best for you. So like I said, straight out of the box, this thing comes with a ton of adjustability, so you can customize this to your preference. Now, the next thing that I want to talk about is the weight and feel of these releases. And in my opinion, both of these releases feel very similar. They're about the same in width. Finger pads on both of them feel very similar to me. Picking up the Carter and then going over to the Stan, as far as feel goes, there was real no change between the two of those. Now, keep in mind, this is the heavy metal option, so this thing is significantly heavier than the Carter Wise Choice. The Stan Onnex heavy metal weighs 7.7 ounces, where if I compare that to the Carter Wise Choice, this thing is 3.5 ounces. So there's definitely a significant amount of weight. You can feel it, but for me personally, I love the weight of this release. I think this release feels fantastic in the hand. I've shot these both back to back for about a month now. I've never had any hot spots with this release, and like I said, I absolutely love the weight of this. Now, the only concern that I have with this weight of this release is if you're like me and you attach this to your D-loop while you're in a tree stand, if you were to go and grab your bow, if this thing happened to swing and catch that string, if you have that trigger set pretty hot, I feel like the weight of this release could actually activate this release, and you could possibly drop your trigger. So that is one thing that I would definitely keep in mind when you're shopping for like a heavy metal. Now, obviously, I have not been able to test that theory out, but it was something that I was initially concerned about. Now, if you have the ability to go to your local bow shop like Sunrise Archery, located in Fenton, Michigan, they carry the heavy metal and then also the aluminum. I would go and pick both of these up and figure out which one you like best. Now, keep in mind, the aluminum version of this release is coming in pretty heavy. It is definitely substantially heavier than the Carter Wise Choice. I would definitely compare that to the UltraView Hinge 2.0 in stainless steel, which I think was coming in at like 123 grams if I recall correctly. But like I said, the weight and feel of this release is amazing. I love the way that this thing feels in the hand, but I also love the way that the Carter Wise Choice feels in the hand. I really like that they have this index loop. I feel like it makes it very easy to grab this thing and be very repeatable with your finger position or your finger pad position on this release, but the same goes for the Stan Onnex. I feel like the width of this release, at least for me, is very repeatable to grab every single time. Now for reference, Stan Onnex, this is a large, and I would say that these are both very comparable in size. Stan does offer 5 different sizes with this release, where the Carter Wise Choice, you only have one size that you can choose from. So next, let's talk about the features of both of these releases, because there are some differences between the two of these and how they operate. So with the Carter Wise Choice, you can see that it's only got that one jaw, and you basically activate that trigger by pressing this button down. And then of course you press that thumb button to get the thing to fire. Whereas the Onnex is very similar. You also have that middle button that basically locks or cocks the release, but you can see here that the caliper design is a little different. So basically an open caliper with a hook on the bottom, which is going to secure it along your D-loop. Now, I will say that getting the Carter Wise Choice on the D-loop is a little bit easier when compared to the Stan Onnex, but what I started to do is I would just cock this release and then basically just use my thumb to push my D-loop into the caliper, and then it would basically just close around it, and it wasn't a big deal. Now, the other thing that I want to mention is just the amount of noise that are on both of these releases. So real quick, you can take a listen to this. So that was the Carter Wise Choice, the Stan Onnex. You basically can't hear anything, and then we'll go ahead and fire both of these. So the Carter Wise Choice is significantly louder. Now for me, in a hunting situation, I hunted with this release and I never had a problem with that noise. Now obviously when you go to shoot your bow, shooting it at an animal, obviously that noise doesn't even matter because they're going to hear the sound of the bow over the sound of the release. But one thing that you got to keep in mind is when you're cocking it, but if you go slow with it, it does get pretty quiet. And then if you go to pull your release off, say you're done with the hunt and you want to get out of an area, say you're hunting in like a bedding area, the one thing that I started doing was basically just putting my finger on that button and then just depressing the trigger, and that really helps kind of dampen some of that noise. Whereas like with the Onnex, I feel like you really don't even have to worry about it. There is a little bit of audio click to it, but the same thing, if you put your hand over that little button and then press that trigger down, you know, you can get it to go pretty quiet. But there is a little bit of noise with both of these releases. Now the next feature that I want to talk about is the Carter Wise Choice does actually have a designated lanyard loop for their release, where the Stan Onnex does not. Now, depending on how you position this third or fourth finger, you can see here that there is a little bit of an opening in there, and you can use that opening as a lanyard loop. But if you're someone who likes that third or fourth finger more swept back, then obviously you're going to lose that hole, and then you're going to be left without being able to run a lanyard loop. So that was one thing I was kind of surprised that Stan did not include. Usually with most handheld releases, there's a lanyard loop on them. And I feel like in a hunting situation, definitely like if you're out west and you're not sitting in a tree stand, you know, having a lanyard loop on a handheld release is really something that you probably for sure want to have, just because you'd be obviously more likely to lose this thing in the woods versus like an index style release that's always attached to your wrist. Now the other feature that I want to talk about with the Stan is definitely a huge selling point, which really drove me to try the Stan and purchase the Stan. Now the Stan Onnex, the chassis of this release is now going to be available on a thumb button, a resistance activated, and then also a hinge style release. And then the benefit of having the exact same chassis between all three of those releases is it's going to give you the ability to change from a thumb button to a resistance activated or a hinge style release, and you don't have to worry about your anchor point or the feel of the release actually changing in the hand. Now Carter Wise Choice, they do not have a setup where you can can transition from release to release, a resistance activated or hinge style, and have it be exactly the same. Now, if you look at Knock-On Archery, they have the Knock to it, the Silverback, and then their hinge style release. I forgot the name of that one, but that chassis of all three of those releases is similar, but it's not the exact same. Now, if I was someone that was just transitioning over from an index style release over to a thumb button, that would be a huge selling point for me. That would really drive me to check out the Stan Onnex. Like I said, being able to transition between a thumb button in hunting season and a resistance or hinge style release in the off season to get better at pulling through your shot is a huge advantage, and not having to worry about your anchor point changing or the feel of the release changing in your hand is a huge selling feature in my opinion. Now, the only other feature that I want to talk about that it comes with the Stan, and for me personally, it was really not a big deal. I really honestly didn't even care for it, but it was the ability to lock out this release. So if you wanted to, you could draw your bow back and you could activate this release, but the release would never actually fire. But that lock basically locks out this top caliper from opening, and Stan was basically claiming that that would allow you to draw your bow, go through your shot process in the house safely and not have to worry about firing your release. Like I said, for me, it wasn't really a huge selling point for the release. I really didn't even care for it, but that is one feature that I also wanted to mention about the Stan Onnex. So the last thing that I want to talk about is which one of these releases I'll be shooting here in 2022. Now, the first thing that I want to say, and I already said it in the beginning of this video, is both of these releases are absolutely fantastic. You really cannot go wrong with either one of these. I think Stan did an outstanding job on this release. I fell in love with this release the minute that I picked it up, and I really like how crisp this trigger is. I love the fact that this thing has a ton of adjustability, but for me, I will be shooting the Carter Wise Choice here in 2022, and it really just boils down to the fact that the neck on the Stan Onnex is slightly longer than the Carter Wise Choice. Now, I did reach out to Stan and I asked if they were going to be offering the Onnex in a short neck style release, and unfortunately they are not going to. And what happens with this longer neck is it basically changes my anchor point. Now, for me to get the exact same anchor point that I get with the Carter Wise Choice, basically what I have to do is I have to bend my elbow a little bit more. Now, what I've realized through shooting this release is if I'm not consciously thinking about adding that additional bend to my elbow and I draw my bow naturally as I would with the Carter Wise Choice, what happens is I'm way back here on my anchor point and basically I'm just floating, and that's where I start to see some inconsistencies with this shot, and I'll get some left to right misses, and I'm not nearly as accurate with this release as I am with the Carter Wise Choice. Now, for me as a bow hunter and someone who likes to shoot archery, it all boils down to accuracy and repeatability, and if I can't repeat the same draw cycle, the same anchor point every single time without thinking about it, then unfortunately that's not going to work out for me, and that's the main reason that I'm going to stick with the Carter Wise Choice. Like I said, the Stan Onnex is an absolutely fabulous release. They did a stellar job on this. I wish this thing would work out, but like I said, unfortunately it's not, and unfortunately Stan has no plans of releasing a short neck style release like they did on the Prefix model. But that's going to be it for this video. I hope this breakdown gives you guys a better understanding of the features that you can expect with both of these releases. I hope you guys better understand the level of adjustability that you can expect with both of these releases, and ultimately I just hope this video helps you guys make a purchasing decision if you're debating between the two of these. If you guys have any questions, you can always drop me a comment below. If you guys have not subscribed to the channel, please do so. Your support greatly helps us out. And then if you have not checked out MichiganAmbushoutdoors.com, please go over there. We do have some merch available, and your guys' purchases of that merch greatly supports this channel, keeps us doing what we're doing. And until next time, stay safe, stay healthy. We'll see you on the next one.